Hi, this is Chris of Perfect Mondays, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a sequence of mistakes that keeps most people from getting what they want. So stick around. Hi, this is Chris of Perfect Mondays, a place for women entrepreneurs who want to scale their business without drama and without overwhelm. And if you're a woman entrepreneur and you'd like to grow your business without having to sacrifice time for money, if you want to feel like you're moving forward and you're getting paid what you're worth, if you don't want to be stuck in second year or feel like you're inside a hamster wheel living in Groundhog Day, then this is a place for you. And today I'm going to be sharing a really powerful series of mistakes that people do that keep them from getting what they want. And before I start sharing this, I want to remind you to subscribe to my channel so you can get all the videos that I do as soon as they come out. So why am I choosing this subject? Well, I find that in business and in personal life, so many people get stuck from getting what they really want. And I've talked a lot about these issues in different videos, but today I'm going to be sharing with you what are some of those big mistakes that people are making that keep them stuck from doing that, from getting just what they want. So let's start with, right into it, let's start with mistake number one. Mistake number one is that people have an idea or a vision on something that they want to do, and they have a really obsessive way of dealing with it. What does this mean? It means that they want to accomplish a certain goal, and we're trained in this society that quitting is for losers, that you don't quit, that you never quit, that you're supposed to keep moving forward, and that with perseverance, you're gonna get what you really want. Now, this is true to a certain extent, but there's been books, I think Seth Godin wrote a book about knowing when to quit, right? That's not the title, but he wrote about it. And he did it because so many people are stuck doing something that's not really moving forward and is not getting them what they want, yet they feel like they can't stop doing that activity, whether it is a relationship that they're stuck in, or a business idea, or a job that they're in. So this applies to all these different things. So I'm going to start by saying that humans in general don't know how to calculate probability. What does this mean? It means that the human brain is created in such a way that you can calculate odds like 10 against 1 or 100 against 1. That's a lot easier for you to compete. But when it comes to difficult things in life, people don't know how to get a grip on that. For example, imagine the lottery. Why do so many people buy lotto tickets? They buy lotto tickets because back in the in the back of their brain, they're getting a dopamine effect by buying this $1 lotto ticket that could potentially solve every single problem in their life. Now, this is not the video where I'm going to discuss why that's not the case. What most people that win the lotto end up exactly where they were a few years later, or even worse. But what I'm talking about today is that we do this in our lives sometimes, where we have this lotto effect. We don't know how to calculate the odds of us actually winning that, but we're still betting, like we're actually going to win. So we do this in relationships, we do this in business, we do this in jobs. And the problem is that when there's something that's really complicated and we're struggling against it, and we see success stories, in this case it's not lotto winners, in case success stories of people who started with nothing and then actually ended up making it big, then we think that this relates to our life, and we have this dopamine effect, much like when you're buying the lotto ticket and say, if I work hard enough, I'm gonna get what I really want, when in so many cases that's not gonna happen. So what is a framework for you to understand when you're having problem number one, which is working really hard, having this vision for something that you're not going to get? Well, there's three things really that are going to give you an indication that you're stuck in this pattern of having a grand vision that might not actually come to fruition. The first one is that the emotional cost of doing that is super high. What does this mean? It means that at some level, the cost of this in your nervous system, in your emotional well-being, is pretty high. It means that you are not getting what you want, and sometimes when you're struggling, which many people have to go to get what they want, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than the actual gain that you would get if you actually got what you wanted. Now, again, because we have this lotto effect in our lives where we see like this huge reward at the end, sometimes we keep doing it time after time. However, when it comes to emotional well-being, if you think about it in your life, what is the actual emotional cost of of wanting to get what you want? And one way to think about it is who am I becoming in the process of wanting to have this thing in my life, or this person in my life? So think about it in terms of relationships. Sometimes there's a relationship that is not very good for you. However, you have this dopamine effect that sometimes the actual, when it's really good, it's really good. It's like this emotional high that you get when you're with this human being. And that overpowers your brain. So when I mentioned earlier that humans do not know how to calculate probability, how to calculate risk, then sometimes these emotional highs that we get, whether it is business, whether it's your personal life, really hinder you from having depth of field and really understanding what's going on, because your mind starts thinking that your odds of winning are actually higher than they really are. So number one is, what is the emotional cost in my life? What am I emotionally going through? How am I feeling as a result of this activity? And the question was, who am I becoming in the process? Now, one of the issues that might arise from this is, am I feeling bad about this situation because I'm emotionally unfit, or am I feeling bad about the situation because it's actually hurting me? That's only for you to decide. However, it's worth for you to explore at least, what is the emotional cost of dealing with this? What is the second indication that this vision that you have for your life is really something that no matter how much you try to get it, how much you strive for it, it's not going to happen. And even if it happens, it's not going to be healthy for you. The energy investment in this activity or this relationship is really high. What does this mean? It means that sometimes, for example, have you ever had a conversation with a human being? It could be a partner, your in-laws, or someone that you have a difficult relationship with, and it only takes about a 1-minute conversation for you to realize that you're spending so much energy, even maybe a 5-minute conversation, and when you're done with that conversation, you're completely drained. Now, time did not play an effect in how much energy you spend. It could be a 5-minute conversation that completely drains you. So in terms of this activity that you're doing, or this relationship that you're having, my question to you is, how much energy are you spending beyond the time? How much energy are you spending on this relationship? And when I talk about an imbalance, well, this is like a really disruptive thing in your life, is because as you're spending that much energy in this one thing, this one activity or one relationship, other areas of your life start suffering. Areas of your life that if you were to spend a fraction of that energy would actually flourish. But because you're spending so much focus in this one thing or one person, then it becomes unhealthy and it becomes completely out of balance. What is the third indicator that this is something that's unhealthy for you, that this vision that you have is not going to come to fruition, or that if it does, it's not going to be what you think it is in terms of your level of fulfillment? It is that the opportunity cost is really high. What does it mean? That means that if you're thinking about when you're putting energy in different projects, again, if you were to put that energy in a project that you're good at, how much more traction would you get doing that activity versus the traction that you're getting doing this thing? Now, I don't mean to say that it's not going to be difficult to get what you want. I don't mean to imply that when you want to do something, it's going to automatically flow and you're going to be completely aligned, or you're going to get any type of resistance. What this means is that you, at some moment in time, you have to stop and think about, if I were to spend my time, my energy on something different, how much more traction would I get? So the first challenge to comprehend in terms of the series of mistakes that people make when they get stuck in life is having a grand vision or something that they want to do, or a relationship that they're really passionate about, without knowing when to cut it off, when to call their losses. Because I said before, because people don't know how to calculate probability, they don't know how difficult it's going to be for them to actually accomplish this, and they don't also start thinking about how much more traction they would get if they were doing something different. The second challenge that people have when they're stuck in this series of mistakes is the time spent. The time spent seems a little bit insane, and what I mean by this is that, think about it. Imagine that you're in a relationship and you've spent, I don't know, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years invested in that relationship. The more time that you spend doing something, the more that you start losing clarity and focus, especially if you're having problems. Why? Because when you're spending a lot of time doing something, then your vision becomes really narrow. You're solving day-to-day problems. So instead of having a 50,000-foot view of your life, you're dealing reactively with day-to-day challenges. And the more that you do this, the more addicted that you get. So the more time you spend doing something, the easier it is for you to get addicted. And we've talked about in other videos how different human needs can get you addicted. So 3 or more human needs attached to something or someone will create addiction. Think about it in this way. If you're having a really turbulent relationship or a really difficult type of business transaction you try to create, whether it's a new part of your business or a new business altogether, or a really difficult job, you have your level of significance fulfilled in a really low level. It's a high significance challenge, right? Because you think this is such a big problem that I need to solve, but you're solving day-to-day problems instead of solving strategic challenges. You're solving tactical stuff all the time. Maybe some strategy, but for the most part, you're surviving. So this is a significant problem. In terms of connection, it's plenty of connection, maybe with others, but definitely with yourself, because you have to stay focused on what you're doing and what you're solving. And thirdly, a huge sense of variety. It's fulfilling your variety sometimes in a low level, because like a shit show is like a soap opera. However, when you're doing these 3 different human needs at a low level, it becomes an addiction. So as you spend so much time doing something, 1 year, 2 years, or even more, then your level of commitment sometimes increases. And because you don't know how to calculate probability, then instead of calculating how much harder it's going to be in the future, you put a rear view mirror, and what you see is what you've done in the past. So take a look at everything that I've done already, all the time that I've invested in this business, all the time that I've invested in the relationship, or money that I've invested in this. And then instead of seeing how much farther you really have, then you start seeing how much you've already done, which in turn makes you feel more committed. Like instead of saying, I call it quits, you double down on your misery. So what is challenge number 3 in this series of mistakes that people make that keep them stuck in life and in business? Well, it has to do with changing their own values, changing their own rules, typically in the form of lowering their standards. So think about it for a moment. Imagine that your goal was to make $1 million. Imagine that your goal was to get the most incredible guy you could think of, okay? And you're not getting that, and you've invested so much time and so much energy, and now you're really committed, and you're doubling down, your efforts are not paying off. Instead of actually recognizing that your finish line is so far away, you're gonna bring it closer by lowering your standards. Instead of getting Mr. Perfect, now all you want is a guy who just shows up every now and then, who doesn't cheat on you. And that's like, oh my God, this is so incredible. It's not incredible. By contrast of what you really wanted, it's really not worth it. But because you've lowered your standards so much and you've gotten your finish line so much closer, then it feels like it's just right. The second thing that happens is that every little nuanced thing that's going on in your life, every little thing that goes right, you immediately interpret it as, oh my God, I knew that it was going to be working, it's paying off. And the analogy that I have for this, imagine for a moment that you have this rock garden and you're watering it for years, maybe 1 year or 2 years, like that relationship, like that failed business, and out of nowhere, these weeds start growing up. Now, the weeds were going to grow regardless of you watering this rock garden. However, because you've lowered your standards, you're going to say, well, look at this. Green is starting to grow. My efforts are paying off. And instead of expecting this amazing forest that you wanted, these beautiful fruit trees, now you're stuck with these weeds and you think that this is moving forward, and when in reality it's not moving forward. So what is number 4? Mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 is when you finally arrive. Something happens, typically a major event, typically an instant awakening, typically something that someone tells you that really disrupts you. It's usually an emotional disruption in your life when you suddenly wake up, and it's what I call the how the fuck did I get here experience, right? And it didn't happen by accident. You were doing a series of mistakes that got you to that place, but once you're there, sometimes it's really hard to let go because of what I mentioned earlier. So let's review quickly what are these 3 mistakes. The first one is having this grand vision of what you want, but in an unhealthy way. It means that you are spending a lot of energy, like the emotional cost of this is really high. The energy spent of this is out of balance with your life, and the opportunity cost is really high, because if you're doing something, spending that amount of energy, you would probably getting a lot more traction. The second mistake has to do with the amount of time that you spend doing this activity, which in turn makes you more addicted to that activity or that person, and it also makes you feel more committed. And when that happens, instead of seeing forward, you start focusing on the day-to-day problems. The third one is that you start lowering your standards, you change the rules of the game, you lower your values. And when that happens, any little detail any little action that you see as positive, you're going to start thinking that it's because of your efforts, that that's really the right path, that you're starting to get aligned. Even though it's really far away, you've brought your finish line so much closer by lowering your standards. And the last one is when you finally awaken and you say, what the hell happened? How did I get here? And it's been a series of events that you've been doing that has kept you from getting what you really want. So I hope that this message is helpful. If it is, I'd love for you to do 3 things. I'd love for you to like the video. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. And if it's helpful to you, I'd love for you to turn on the notifications icon so that you can get these as soon as they come out. And finally, this is something that you think someone might benefit from, I'd love for you to share with them. But most importantly, underneath the description of this video, there's gonna be a link for you to connect with me if you'd like to get some hands-on support on how to implement some of these strategies in your life. If you're someone who has been watching my videos and then you say, Chris, I think this is great, but I love a little more hand-holding in the process, I would love to support you the way that I've supported hundreds of women entrepreneurs who have been turning their businesses around, who have been scaling really fast, who have been doing it with more purpose, with a lot less struggle, and by focusing in their zone of genius, by working smarter instead of harder. So you might click on that link and see if we might be a good fit to work together. And also underneath the first link, underneath the description of this video, there's another link for you to check out some of my latest case studies, for you to experience firsthand what are some of the women that I've been working with, what do they say in terms of how much we've done together and how has this impacted their life and their business. So thank you much for watching this. I hope you have an amazing week and I send you all my love from Austin.